Jeremiah 14, verses 7 to 9.
Okay. Jeremiah 14.
Okay, are you hearing me any better now?
I can hear you.
Yes, it's okay. Just try to speak louder, I guess.
Okay, Jan can read 14, 7 to 9.
Okay. Though our iniquities testify against us, act, O Lord, for your name's sake, for our backslidings are many. We have sinned against you. O you hope of Israel, its Savior in time of trouble, why should you be like a stranger in the land, like a traveler who turns aside to tarry for a night? Why should you be like a man confused, like a mighty warrior who cannot save? Yet you, O Lord, are in the midst of us, and we are called by your name. Do not leave us.
So this is Jeremiah is praying to God about relenting on the disaster that he's going to bring onto Israel or Judah and Jerusalem. So what is his argument to God to not bring the pestilence?
Well, I guess Jeremiah is saying, and we know we've sinned, but please have mercy and not bring this on.
Right. And he's saying in verse 7 and verse 9 says, for your name's sake. So, because it's kind of the argument Moses had used before, saying, if you destroy your people, everybody will say, well, that was kind of a failed experiment. And either God's people failed or God failed with the people, but it's going to make God look bad, I think, is the argument that Jeremiah is trying to make. So, and then God responds in the next verses, 10 to 12. Bob, would you like to read those?
Okay. Thus says the Lord concerning his people. They have loved to wander thus. They have not restrained their feet. Therefore the Lord does not accept them. Now he will remember their iniquity and punish their sins. The Lord said to me, do not pray for the welfare of this people. Is that right?
12.
9 through 11?
12.
And
Oh,
12.
12. Though they fast, I will not hear their cry, and though they offer burnt offering and grain offering, I will not accept them. But I will consume them by the sword, by famine, and by pestilence.
Mm.
Yeah. So what's the apparent reason there that God is going to let them perish by sword and pestilence?
Because of their iniquity, right? Because they wandered away.
Mm. Yeah.
Right, they
They
wandered.
continue on in their wicked ways.
Yeah.
And then at the end of verse 10 says, will punish their sins.
Mm-hmm.
let's jump to the next chapter, 15. This gives some more reasons for the pestilence that's going to come. Chapter 15, verses 1 to 4. Denise, would you like to read those?
Okay. So it says, Then the Lord said to me, even if Moses and Samuel were to stand before me, my heart would not go out to this people. Send them away from my presence. Let them go. And if they ask you, where shall we go? Tell them, this is what the Lord says. Those destined for death, to death, those destined for death, to death, those for the sword, to the sword, those for starvation, to starvation, and those for captivity, to captivity. I will send 4 kinds of destroyers against them, declares the Lord. The sword to kill, and the dogs to drag away, and the birds of the air, and the beasts of the earth to devour and destroy. I will make them a portent to all kingdoms of the earth, because what Masenah, son of Hezekiah, king of Judah, did in Jerusalem.
So he gives a little more detail on the disaster coming, but he gives another reason for the disaster. And what did you pick that up at the end there?
The son of the king in Judah in Jerusalem did something.
Right. The Manasseh was pretty much rated as the worst king that the southern kingdom had. Judah, the southern kingdom. And Manasseh was Hezekiah's son. And I thought we could get a little reminder of how bad Manasseh was. If you go back to 2 Kings, chapter 21. Just before Chronicles. After Samuel. So this is a little bit longer. Probably could read about 4 verses each. Maybe starting with Alexi, and then Alexi, Jan, then Bob, and Denise, and I'll
Starting with which verse?
Verse 1 through 16. But four verses each.
Okay.
Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hephzibah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, after the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. For he built up again the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed, and he reared up altars for Baal, and made a grove, as did Ahab king of Israel, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served them. And he built altars in the house of the Lord, which the Lord said, In Jerusalem will I put my name.
And he built altars for all the host of heaven in the 2 courts of the house of the Lord. And he burned his son as an offering, and used fortune telling and omens, and dealt with mediums and with necromancers. He did much evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger. And the carved image of Asherah that he had made, he set in the house of which the Lord said to David and to Solomon his son, "In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I will put my name forever. And I will not cause the feet of Israel to wander any more out of the land that I gave to their fathers, if only they will be careful to do according to all that I have commanded them, and according to all the law that my servant Moses commanded them."
But the people did not listen. Manasseh led them astray, so they did more evil than the nations the Lord had destroyed before the Israelites. The Lord said through the servants and the prophets, "Manasseh, king of Judah, has committed these detestable sins. He has done more evil than the Amorites who preceded him, and has led Judah into sin with his idols. Therefore, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: I am going to bring such disaster on Israel and Judah that the ears of everyone who hears of it will tingle. I will stretch out over Jerusalem the measuring line used against Samaria and the plumb line used against the house of Ahab. I will wipe out Jerusalem as one wipes a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. I will forsake the remnant of my inheritance and hand them over to their enemies. They will be looted and plundered by all their foes."
And Bob, did Bob read
No, he hasn't.
last two, 15 and 16?
Okay. Because they have done what is evil in my sight and have provoked me to anger since the day their fathers came out of Egypt, even to this day. Moreover, Manasseh shed very much innocent blood till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to the another. Besides that, the sin that he made Judah to sin, so that they did what was evil in the sight of the Lord.
So, as you can see, Manasseh was pretty evil. I mean, he sacrificed his own children. He killed innocent people in Jerusalem. He set up the Baal worship and the Ashtoreth. And even set them up right in the temple. So he desecrated the temple. And so the prophets at that time told him Jerusalem was going to be destroyed because of him. Even though his father had been one of the best kings since David, Manasseh was the worst king. And then Manasseh's son, Josiah, was called the best king that Judah had during the divided kingdom. And I've thought it's curious. God waited over 100 years. When Jeremiah is writing about becoming destruction, it's over 100 years, maybe 120 years after Manasseh. Any thoughts on why God would wait that long?
Maybe hoping that everybody would return to him.
Yeah, that's what I thought of. You know, we read that verse before, 2 Peter 3:9, I think, where it says, God is not slow in keeping his promise, but he is waiting. He's not desiring that anyone should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And So that happened after Manasseh, Manasseh's son Josiah, who was only 8 years old, became the best king, and he tore down everything that Manasseh had set up, all the idolatry, and he restored all the temple practices, and he even reinstituted all the festivals that they hadn't been doing, Passover and Pentecost, and he's the one that they found the Bible in the temple, and so the priest read him the Bible, and he just tore his clothes because he knew that Israel had disobeyed so badly, and so he went and had total reform and turned the country around. So it really shows that God's patience allowed for many people to turn back to the Lord.
Mhm.
But then, after Josiah, there were like three more kings, and they were all evil, it says. And they went back into idolatry like Manasseh. Not as bad as Manasseh, but pretty bad. So then that got us up to the time of Jeremiah.
Mhm.
So, have you ever seen that where a grandfather and a grandson follow the Lord, but the son in between had no interest in the Lord?
Mhm.
I thought maybe Hezekiah had a positive influence on Josiah, but when I checked the ages, it looked like Hezekiah died before Josiah was born, so
Mhm.
no influence from his grandfather. It seems to be mainly from finding the Bible in the temple and reading that.
Mhm.
But
How old, do we know how old he was when he found that Bible?
I think he was still a teenager.
But he was king since he was 8 years old.
Yeah.
So his father died, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking that Manasseh might have gone bad because he was so young when he became king. He had all that power, he could do anything he wanted, probably. But
Yeah, Manasseh was 12. You know how 12-year-olds can be. You give
maybe there's that age where you,
Yeah.
give total power.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd rather my 8-year-old grandson would have total power rather than my 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that, I guess. Yeah.
Um,
You guys,
oh,
Alexia and Natsky, have yet to experience that fun age.
well, it says it was in his 18th year of Josiah's reign that he found the Bible, so he would have been
Oh.
26.
26.
Yeah. But also another thing I thought about was these kings had lots of sons, because they had multiple wives and concubines. So I can see how it would be easy for some of the sons to not turn out real well, because they're not all going to get. Figure if you had 10 sons, the chance of one of them being a bad apple is probably fairly good.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll go back to Jeremiah now, and it gets interesting as we look at the coming pestilence. We go back to Jeremiah 18, verse 18. So, 18:18. from verse 18 to 23. You want me to take a turn reading?
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'll take a turn reading from Jeremiah 18:18, and this is talking about Jews. The Jews are tired of hearing Jeremiah giving bad prophecies, so there's a plot to kill him. So they said, "Come, let us make plots against Jeremiah, for the law shall not perish from the priest, nor counsel from the wise, nor the word from the prophet. Come, let us strike him with the tongue. Let us not pay attention to any of his words." And then Jeremiah prays to the Lord, "Hear me, O Lord, and listen to the voice of my adversaries. Should good be repaid with evil? Yet they've dug a pit for my life. Remember how I stood before you to speak good for them and turn away your wrath from them. Therefore deliver up their children to famine, give them over to the power of the sword. Let their wives become childless and widowed. May their men meet death by pestilence, their youths be struck down by sword in battle. May a cry be heard from their houses when you bring the plunder suddenly upon them. For they've dug a pit to take me and laid snares for my feet. Yet you, O Lord, know all their plotting to kill me. Forgive not their iniquity, nor blot out their sin from your sight. Let them be overthrown before you. Deal with them in the time of your anger."
That's quite a prayer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you prayed like that recently?
Tell you if I did.
Because earlier in the book, Jeremiah is pleading for God to take it easy on the people and, for your name's sake, show some mercy. But later on, as they're trying to kill Jeremiah, he decides, they deserve what they're going to get. And so then, getting to the next part, Jeremiah 21 is an interesting wrinkle in this. So Jeremiah 21 verses 8 to 10. Would you like to read that, Julie?
And to this people you shall say, Thus says the Lord, Behold, I set before you the way of life and the way of death. He who stays in this city shall die by the sword, by famine, by pestilence. But he who goes out and surrenders to the Chaldeans who are besieging you shall live and shall have his life as a prize of war. For I have set my face against this city for harm and not for good, declares the Lord. It shall be given into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall burn it with fire.
So, Nebuchadnezzar, attacked Jerusalem 3 times, and the first 2 times he just took people like Daniel and other officials and the king, and he set up his own king. And the second time, that first king rebelled, so he set up another king and took some more people. But the third time, when he comes, he's going to destroy Jerusalem. And so God gives them an out here. And it continues in chapter 22. Let's see. Oh, sorry. 24 verses 4 to 10. So first, what we just read is he gave them an option of staying in the city and they either die by the sword or pestilence, or they can surrender to the Chaldeans and be taken back to Babylon. And he continues with that in 24 verse 4 to let's see, Alexei, would you like to read that?
4 through 10.
Yes, 24.
All right. Also, I think Hunter is trying to get online and can't access it. Texted us. You might check your phone while I'm reading this. Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, like these good figs, so will I acknowledge them that are carried away captive of Judah, whom I have sent out of this place into the land of the Chaldeans for their good. For I will set mine eyes upon them for good, and I will bring them again to this land. And I will build them and not pull them down, and I will plant them and not pluck them. And I will give them an heart to know me, that I am the Lord. And they shall be my people, and I will be their God. I shall return unto me with their whole heart. And as the evil figs which cannot be eaten, they are so evil. Surely thus saith the Lord, so will I give Zedekiah the king of Judah, and the princes and the residue of Jerusalem that remains in this land, and them that dwell in the land of Egypt. And I will deliver them to be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth for their hurt, be a reproach and a proverb, a taunt and a curse, in all places whither I shall drive them. And I will send the sword, the famine, and the pestilence among them, till they be consumed off the land that I gave unto them and to their fathers.
Okay, let me get you back here.
Oh, Tammy.
Now with those two passages, why do you think he wanted people to surrender and go to Babylon rather than stay in Jerusalem?
Air conditioner room.
Is it, well, let me ask this. Is it typically easier to surrender to an evil enemy or just to fight to the death? Not a good choice, huh?
No.
No.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, Tammy.
Oh, we
Hi,
can't.
Tammy.
You're on mute. You have to clear
Oh.
your mute.
Hi guys, sorry.
Oh, there you
All
are.
right. Good. How are you?
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you all too.
Hey, well, we're just reading, been reading through Jeremiah. We just read Jeremiah 21, 8 to 10, and 24, 4 to 10, where Jeremiah says, as they're surrounded by Nebuchadnezzar's army at Jerusalem, and they're given a choice. They can stay in the city and they will perish by the sword or by famine or by pestilence, or they can surrender to the Babylonians and be taken back to Babylon. And then in chapter 24, he promises to bless them while they're in Babylon, that he will build them up and not tear them down, and he'll give them a heart to know that he's the Lord, and they will be his people, and he will be their God. They will return to him with their whole heart. So the option, it seems like a better option to go with the Babylonians, even though the reputation of the Babylonians is pretty bad. But they did allow their captives to live good lives in Babylon. And I was just wondering, do you see any parallel here with what Jesus offers us? See any parallels with the gospel to what the predicament the people were in?
I do. That it's like a rock in a hard place.
Yeah. So they're totally trapped by their sin in Jerusalem, and there's no way out. But what's one thing they have to do in order to stay alive?
They have to conform to the people, right? I missed something there, though. Hold on.
Yeah, he said they have to surrender
Yes.
to the enemy. So how is that kind of parallel with the gospel?
It's not. It doesn't. You can't. You can only serve one God. It's like they're choosing to. For them, that's no fun. Is it? Are you asking me? Because I'm talking. And I don't know.
I'm asking
Good.
the whole group. So
I'm like, I'm jumping.
anybody that had that thought,
Okay, cool.
I think it parallels in that they go to Babylon, and did you say the Lord said he'll be with them, although it's such a different culture and all that. And the same with us as Christians following Jesus, that the road to following him is a difficult one. We'll be persecuted. We will. People are going to look at us, turn against us. We have a difficult road too. But I don't know, going back to Babylon is how it seems a little bit more difficult and for them back then, but our world today is really especially during these times, is pretty difficult to be faithful and stick with being a Jesus follower with all this stuff that is in our media, that's just all around us. So I think the culture of Babylon and us today is probably the same kind of stuff that's going to influence. And then depending on how strong your faith is, how we're going to come out of it.
yeah.
Oh, I was thinking also that Jesus is our hope, and he says he will never leave us or forsake us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what God promised to them. I will give them a heart to know that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God.
Mm-hmm.
So
I,
just having hope.
I was thinking, I just got here, that there isn't any difference. It's the way we rationalize things. Where else were they going to go? Where was it they were going to have so much peace? Where can a Christian go to have, like, be on any kind of a vacation, except for that you can't. I mean, even if you stayed or you didn't stay, you're alive. You have to live somewhere, right? And that doesn't really matter. Christ is with you wherever you go, just like Pastor's. You say Pastor's wife. I forgot your name.
Oh, Jan.
That's right.
Okay.
I was gonna say June. I said I don't think that's. There's
That was a long time ago, huh?
right that God's going to be with us no matter what, in good times or in bad.
Mm-hmm.
That I can constantly think about I'm alive. It doesn't really matter where I'm alive. I'm alive.
Mhm.
So, and that Christ, I'm with. Oh, Denise, that's what I see your name there, Denise, right?
Yes.
Yeah, what she says about walking our faith. Walking in our faith, he's like, I'm with you. You can go anywhere. Paul's like, where can you go where God's not? Where God's not at. He's always with you, even in the pits of hell, like in the Daniel in the lion's den and Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. And those were the worst places to be because they were suddenly faced with true death. We're not really persecuted here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a figment of our imagination. I mean, you see people really losing their lives, hiding in tunnels and dying for the gospel. And we're really acting like we're being persecuted when we're not. We can wear T-shirts. All someone's going to do is hurt your feelings. You're not going to die for it.
Mm.
So what I'm saying is these people, if they were in the same circumstances as us, they were able to walk the gospel with Christ every day and have peace, no matter how bad it was where they lived. Just like now, we can walk with Christ right now, no matter where we live,
Mm-hmm.
except for where people are truly being sacrificed for the gospel. Sorry.
Right.
That's my opinion.
No.
Yeah, the one
Amen, sister.
thing that hit me was how if they stayed in the city and fought, it's kind of like deciding to try and save yourself,
Mm.
and you're just going to die trying. Or you can humble yourself, and because to surrender to Babylon, they would have to humble themselves and give up everything, all their property, and even their clothes. And clothes might be stripped from them and
Mm.
taken away. So it's a humbling process, which I see coming to the Lord. We also have to humble ourselves, and yet, like Denise said, we get taken to a new land when and we're in a new family. It's a new life when you come to the Lord, and sometimes it seems scary. I remember hearing the guy who was president of Dallas Seminary one time. He was a pretty funny guy. He said he brought a friend to church one day, and the guy was getting close to believing. It was Howard Hendricks, and the friend said to Howard Hendricks, "If I become a Christian, am I going to have to be like these other people?" So
Yes.
sometimes it can be intimidating.
You can look at that two ways. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
glass half full or half empty. Either way.
Yeah.
Either way.
So, moving on, God gives more good promises. In Jeremiah 27, verses 8 to 11. 27, 8 to 11. Let's see, Denise, would you like to read that?
Okay. It says, if, however, any nation or kingdom will not serve Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, or bow its neck under his yoke, I will punish that nation with the sword, famine, and plague, declares the Lord, until I destroy it by his hand. So do not listen to your prophets, your diviners or interpreters of dreams, your mediums or your sorcerers who tell you, you will not serve the king of Babylon. They will prophesy lies to you. They will only serve to remove you far from your land, and I will banish you and you will perish. But if any nation will bow its neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon and serve him, I will let that nation remain in its own land to fill it and to live there, declares the Lord.
So, so essentially, God is making the same offer to these other nations that are around Israel as he makes to the Jews in Jerusalem. Any thoughts on why God would make the same offer to these other nations? And that's anybody can answer that.
There's no way of getting out. There's no out. I used to think that I'd always pray God would deliver me. I didn't realize he says, I'm not going to deliver you. I'm going to go through it with you. That's like a new revelation. And he's telling everyone, we're going to go through this together. That's the simplest way to put it. We made the same offer because we're kind of an example. If somebody got away and was having it easy, maybe they would judge each other or something. Hey, how come that guy? It's like Peter was always saying, he was always, well, what about that guy? How come they look like they've got it all easy over there? And everyone would tell him, mind your own business, Peter.
Yeah.
They might be jealous of each other because some people got punished and some people didn't, or had it easy.
I was thinking this could also almost be used in a missions message to show that God had a heart for the nations, the other nations besides Israel, and he's offering that same salvation if they humble themselves and surrender to Babylon and go through the humility of being carried off to Babylon. Or some nations, they let you stay where you were, but they appointed another king and taxed you to death, and you would still be.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I see that he's using this to break their pride.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I just thought how horrible it would feel to have to be under your enemy's reign and all the stuff that, you were saying all this stuff and now you have to do what we say. That would break a person's pride. Make you fully dependent on God. That would be the same thing that's happening with us right now. Yeah, I see that now. Sorry about coming late. I get it now. Oh, I see the light.
Yeah, I just tried to imagine like a country like China, do a spring secret attack, and all of a sudden the U.S. had a choice, surrender or die, And,
I hope that doesn't come true. It sounds kind of like it might be a possibility.
But actually, it's for our own good.
Yeah.
Surrendering to the Lord. So, then the next one is God tells them what to do while they're in Babylon. It's in Jeremiah 29, verses 4 to 7. Maybe Bob could read that one.
4-7. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat their produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease. But seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf. For in its welfare you will find your welfare. Keep going.
Uh,
No.
so what's what's the advice for if you're taken into exile or have to live in a new city?
Marry and have sons. But are they telling them to have sons with the new people or with each other?
Oh, I think with as far as take wives and have families, I think he was talking about with each other.
Okay. Okay, I'm just double checking.
Mhm.
But he's also saying, yeah,
Do not decrease.
right. Don't decrease, but keep multiplying
Mm-hmm.
and
And make homes and gardens and
yeah, build homes. Don't act like you're just going to be there for a short time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So build houses, plant gardens, um, and seek the welfare of the city. You know that kind of goes against the grain of a conquered people. Um, Usually you think of sabotaging the place you've been dragged to, but but God
Because
tells you to seek the welfare of Babylon.
that's a hard pill to swallow right there, because everything you told them they were doing was wrong, and now you're helping them, right? It's another
Right.
hard pill to swallow.
just like in the gospel, we're to love our enemies and pray
Whew.
for them, like it says here.
I mean, it's like here in America, we won't frequent somebody that either um, makes, or we won't make a cake for them because the two people or two men are getting married. They'd have to make that cake according to the Bible. They'd have to do business with them, regardless if they like it or not.
Yeah, the Babylonians were, idol worshippers, and they actually worship the image that Nebuchadnezzar made, and so they were definitely not believers. Although I think through the Jewish people living there and living like that and seeking the welfare of people in Babylon, they probably won many people over.
That's what they had to do.
And probably many people became believers. In fact, a lot of commentators think that the three wise men were probably descendants of people in Babylon that came in contact with the Jews. Um, so, yeah, that's a pretty famous passage that pastors like to use when they, kind of grow where you're planted, that
Mhm.
little plaque.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's a good application to
And
keep the
I
welfare.
like what Tammy said is wherever we're at, whatever country that may not be the same beliefs as us as Christians, that the Lord is with us, and we have to stick together and remember where we came from, our are the word, the teachings of the Lord that um, He guides us with, and you know, anywhere in the world, there's influences that are totally opposite of what our beliefs are as Christians, and you know, we just have to stick together and continue to be faithful and trust the Lord that He's going to be with us every step of the way, no matter where we are.
Right. That's news. That's news.
Mm-hmm.
Because we feel so detached.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. But it still doesn't matter. We can't go by our feelings. It's just a fact. He's with us, regardless if we feel it or not. He's
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, the last passage
with
is the best news for the people in Jerusalem. Remember, they're still in Jerusalem. They still haven't made the decision to go yet. And final promises are in Jeremiah 32, verses from 30 30 to 41. And so it's kind of a summary of the bad and the good. So maybe this is like 12 verses, so maybe 3 or 4 people could read.
So it's Jeremiah 32, verse 30.
Yeah, 32:30. Would you like to read the first 4
Sure.
verses?
The people of Israel and Judah have done nothing but evil in my sight. That one.
Yes.
From their youth. Indeed, the people of Israel have done nothing but arouse my anger with what their hands have made, declares the Lord. From the day it was built until now, the city has so arose my anger and wrath that I must remove it from my sight. The people of Israel and Judah have provoked me by all the evil they have done. They, their kings and officials, their priests and prophets, the people of Judah and those living in Jerusalem, they turn their backs to me and not their faces. Though I taught them again and again, they would not listen or respond to discipline. They set up their vile images in my house that bears my name and defiles it. And defiled, past tense, it. They built high places for Baal in the valley of Ben Hinnom, who sacrificed their sons and daughters to Molech. Although I never commanded, nor did it enter my mind that they should do such a detestable things and so make Judah sin.
Yeah. Thank you. And then the good part, from 36 to, let's see, Alexi, could you read 36 to 38? And then Bob, the last 3 verses.
And now therefore thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, concerning the city whereof ye say, it shall be delivered into the hand of the king of Babylon by the sword, and by the famine, and by the pestilence. Behold, I will gather them out of all countries, whither I have driven them in mine anger, and in my fury, and in great wrath. And I will bring them again unto this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely. And they shall be my people, and I will be their God.
I will give them one heart and one way, that they may fear me forever, for their own good and the good of their children after them. I will make with them an everlasting covenant, that I will not turn away from doing good to them. And I put the fear of me in their hearts, and they may not turn from me, that they may not turn from me. I will rejoice in doing them good, and I will plant them in this land in faithfulness with all my heart and all my soul. For thus says the Lord, just as I have brought all this great disaster upon this people, so I will bring upon them all the good that I promised them. Fields shall be bought in this land of which you are saying, it is a desolation without man or beast. It is given into the hands of the Chaldeans. Fields shall be bought for money. Keep going. Should I keep going?
Oh, no, that's good.
Okay.
Um,
So after a time, yeah.
so, when we first started the study tonight, God said he was going to punish them because of their sins and iniquity. But after reading through these different passages in Jeremiah, would you say there's other reasons
Mm.
God brought those disasters onto Jerusalem?
Mm.
Just punishment?
Oh yeah. I would. I would say there's a whole bunch of, and that Molech stuff. Oh boy. Really, really terrible. It says that guys like, I didn't even think of this stuff. You guys did stuff I didn't even think of. Like they made, like they didn't just sin, they super sinned. Like they invented stuff.
Right, right. I mean, they really fell into evil,
Yes.
and yet God gave them a way out to avoid dying by the sword or famine or pestilence if they would humble themselves and go to Babylon. And then he promises to be with them and take care of them while they're in Babylon. And then he promises to bring them back to Israel and that they will be his people and he will be their God. And
That's prophetic.
so it's definitely not just, he doesn't just punish them and
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Leave it like that.
he is giving them a way out of the punishment, and it's the same with Jesus. He gives us a way out from the punishment and promises to bring us to paradise with him. So I definitely saw some parallels here.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yes, I agree.
first started reading Jeremiah, I just thought, well, yeah, he's just going to punish him, but there's a lot more to it than that. That's the way God does punish sin, but he also wants to give us a way out and put our faith in him. So
But he also wants other nations to hear about him. So one of the ways
Yeah.
to get that to other nations was to have Israel be taken. So
yeah, he even was working on Nebuchadnezzar himself. You know, Daniel, he humbled Nebuchadnezzar to act as an animal for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. It was the moment wow, this is so parallel. This is, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun, right? We just gotta find it where we are in this book. And this is what's just about where we're at. This is some tough stuff. This is a tough stuff to swallow because maybe everyone thinks, well, I wasn't as bad as that guy. No. If you compare yourself to the worst person, you probably look pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I know we've gone past our 7:30, so
Thanks you guys for holding out for me. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, glad you could join us, Tammy.
Yeah, I can. Now that I can find you, I'm here. I'm here.
Does anybody?
Tammy, it's so good to see you, Tammy.
Thank you guys. I missed you guys.
Yeah, we miss you too. And any prayer requests for my when I wrap up with prayer? Bob, you're having surgery soon, right?
Tuesday.
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.